What you learn in nursing university and what you find in the hospital are not the same. I'm a fourth year nursing student and I'm a final year nursing student, and today I want to talk about the gap between nursing university and the hospital that nobody warns you about. So the first point that I really want to talk about here is theory versus real patients. So in nursing university we have a lot of subjects that really tackle all the aspects of the medical field, right? We have the anatomy, understand the body, the physiology, understand how it works, the microbiology, understand all about the microorganisms, the pharmacology, or you learn all about the medicaments and drugs and all sorts of subjects that you study. Now obviously this is only in the first year. Second year, go more in depth into the specialties and the differences and what really gives you the advantage. But still, what you learn in theory are not always the same, or usually it's not what you find in a hospital. One example that I really like to give about this topic is one of my best friends. He was always the first in class. He was always the first in class when it comes to theory. He always the first in exams. But when it came to the actual internship, when it came to the actual hospitals, he was very far behind, even in comparison to the other students who do not master the theory as much as possible. So this comes obviously at a difference in students. As an example, there is one university student that is with me a final year. She always prefers practical than theory. She says, in theory, all what I have to do is just memorize the lessons, maybe the last few days before the exam, and that's really all what I have to do. But in practice, I really want to be on point, be on schedule, and she got a point. But it doesn't only, as a nursing student, you have to understand or master the theory, obviously, to get the good grades and to pass the exams and pass and get your degree as a nursing student. And also, you want to be good at internship, so because you also have internship exams, and obviously that will be your job when you get hired eventually after graduation. The second point that I really want to also talk about is speed and pressure in the hospital. So speed and pressure in the hospital goes hand in hand, goes together. Obviously it's more present in, let's call it, warm or hot services. As an example, emergency rooms, oncology, internal medicine. So these are all services that really has a lot of work that requires a lot of speed and a lot of pressure. Now, when it comes to pressure, obviously there is certain situations. Like as an example, there is an urgency with a client, with a patient or a client, yeah, because there's different school of thought. Some people say clients, some people say patients. But if there is urgency with the patients, if there is sometimes some people die in hospital, these things do happen, right? So a lot of these situations are a lot of pressure and require you to have a lot of speed as well. Whether speed of decision making, of practicing what you've learned, of just telling the nurses or talking to the doctors, it's just speed is so important. So one of the times that I really understood the differences between speed, even though I am a final year nursing student, I had an internship at the beginning of this semester in a local hospital center, or like the local hospital center, but not my area, but it's a different area, but it's the local hospital center. And there was a nurse that I worked with last year and also this year. So I'm used to him. They trust me. They basically give me the entire hospital for me. I work with obviously my teammate and we do a lot of the job. But at one point there was a lot of people coming in. I was doing my work, and it's one of those moments that he sort of like showed off why he has a lot of experience. He said, I literally was waiting for you to do it faster, and he thought that I was the best out of all the people that he can trust. And he said, I really thought they could do it faster, but let me show you how to do it faster. And he really just went through it. And that speed usually comes with repetition, with experience, but usually some people have more speed than others. So this is the difference between theory and practice when it comes to speed. Because in theory, you always have the time to use ChatGPT or Google or just look at your PDFs. But in practice, you don't have that time, and a lot of the times you just have to act fast because there is a lot of other patients that are waiting as well. The third point that I really want to talk about is communication matters more than perfect answers. So this is extremely important, as the story that I was just talking about, how under pressure you need to do a lot of things. You need to practice what you've learned. You practice obviously with the limit of your of what you can do. So you want to do what you can do and the stuff that you studied, etc. But also you need to establish a very good communication with the entire staff, whether that be nurses, whether that be doctors, whether that be helpers, so like paramedic helpers or anything. It really is important to establish a very good communication, way better than a perfect answers. So if there's a certain, I remember there's one specific situation that will drive this home, is that I was in the block operation room, also like about 1 month or 2 months ago, at the beginning of the semester, and there was a doctor. So with a doctor professor, obviously you have to study an absurd amount of years to be that, and there was med students. There were only us, so final year nursing students, and obviously there's nursings and you know the operation room sort of divided by 3. There is the nurses, there is anesthesia nurses, there is anesthetic doctors and chirurgical doctors, and there's interns, medical interns or residents. So there was a lot of people in there, and the doctor was actually asking the med students about certain muscles, right? Spectral muscles to be exact. So he was asking them a bunch of questions, etc. And then that day, he really talks about this topic, how a lot of the times communication matters more than the actual perfect answer. So maybe you don't have the perfect, sometimes it happens, you're tired, you're this, you're that, or sometimes you're a student, maybe you just don't know something. But as long as you establish a very good communication, you should be in good hand, whether with the staff, whether with the doctors. And a lot of the time, especially in emergency rooms, and when there's a lot of patients, a lot of lightning, when there's a lot of patients, when there's a lot of staff as well, your communication and the words you give are everything. You just say something, I will count on it as it's true, and the other staff will also count on it. So communication is king, better than having perfect answers. The fourth point that I really want to tackle here is mistakes feel heavier in real life. Now this is a little bit tricky, isn't it? In theory, maybe the professor asks you a couple questions. He says, what is this answer? What is this answer? And maybe you're wrong, big whoops. He's gonna correct you. Or a friend corrects you, colleague corrects you, or you look at the PDF, you ask ChatGPT, it doesn't really matter. But there is very low stakes, low pressure when it comes to mistakes. On the other hand, in real life, you have more stakes because it's patience. A lot of the times you're just you and the patient in there, so you really every mistakes will really count way heavier than, let's say, in theory. In theory, there is no pressure, there is no patience, there is no lives at risk, there is no drugs you're administrating. But when it comes to practice, when it comes to real life, obviously there is a lot of situations where the patient's life depends on it, or his experience, or his quality of life, etc. So that really matters. I'd say the fifth point that I really want to talk about is how students can mentally prepare for this gap. Okay, now this is quite interesting, and I'm pretty sure this might be the most important one of them all, is how students can prepare for this gap. I'll say number one, have the fast adaptability. Now you'd say, what do you mean by that? I would say, ask a lot of questions, and don't ask also only about theory that you only know. I see a lot of students only ask about stuff they already know. It's like, oh, what's the name of this bone? Sure, everybody knows it's the humerus. You don't need to ask about that, but you really want to ask about how it's the arrangements of staff, how the communications, how the circuit of staff in that exact service, what are the most used drugs, what are the things you have to be aware of, etc. So that type of communication and questions really will give you a very huge advantage when it comes to the gap. Personally, I always do this. And also one of the ways to also get used to the gap is that the first few days in internship in a service, it doesn't have to be like the first internship in all your nursing university, it can be just in a service. What I would recommend you to do is be more observatory. you observe a lot, you observe more, you look at this, you look at that, you see how staff moving, how there's the arrangement, obviously the management, and you see who does this, who does that, and you start introducing yourself slowly into the service. That's you. Personally, that this is exactly how I do it every time. At first, I'm more laid back, laid down. I look at everything. I look how they do, how's the management, what they care about, what they don't. Then, usually at the end, obviously, of the period you have in the service, everybody relies on you, right? And especially if you're a final year nursing student, really, you are a nurse. And a lot of the times, they give you the responsibility, they give you the entire service, especially if you have a colleague, you got the entire service for yourself. I'll do a quick recap of the 5 points we talked about. 1, theory versus real patients. 2, speed and pressure in hospital is also a big one. 3, communication matters more than perfect answers. 4, mistakes feel heavier in real life in hospital. 5, how students can mentally prepare for this gap. Make sure to write down in the comments down below what's the biggest problem that you are facing in nursing university, and I'll make sure to make a video about how I fixed it myself. Thank you.